Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best life. Today we have Aaron and Jen Gabrielson with us. Aaron, you want to share with us a little bit about you?
My name's Aaron Gabrielson. I live up in Heber City, and I have 7 kids, and this is my wife, Jen, and we're really happy to be here today.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jen Gabrielson. Like Aaron said, we have 7 children. Our oldest is 23, who just made us grandparents a few months ago.
I'm going to pause right there and say, I cannot believe you have a 23-year-old or a grandchild because you look half my age, so now I just feel old and tired. But carry on.
I started young. Anyway, and then we have a 21-year-old daughter. We have an 18-year-old daughter. We have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son who is our newest child. We actually adopted him through foster care. The adoption just happened in June. And then Crew, who would have been 7 years old. And that's our family.
So you've got your hands full. That's a
yes.
big family, and now you're already on to the next generation.
Yes, we are.
My hat is off to you. And congratulations on the adoption. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I actually know Aaron and Jen. I told her last night, I'm like, hey, I saw Aaron post pictures of you in St. George this past weekend, and I'm like, you still look like you're 20. I'm like, it's unfair. She promised me that I would not be impressed with her when I saw her today. Oh, no, and she's wrong, right?
She's completely wrong.
The last 4 years have aged me a lot.
And we
physically and emotionally.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we can relate to that, but you look great.
Anyway, but Crew, so he's would have been our youngest. We adopted him when he was born. It took me 5 years to talk Aaron into it, being pretty relentless about the begging, but he knew.
I was on board.
You were on board, and he just wanted to wait for the right timing, which is great because then we got Crew and not some other kid. But anyway, Crew was just a glowing light of just happiness and joy from the second we saw him. He was the center of our universe, our whole family, everybody, all the kids, they just loved him. They just wanted to be around him. He just brought joy and sunshine to our home. So we wanted to just tell a couple of stories about Crew that
so people could kind of get to know him a little better.
Yeah, because he's not just, he's gone, but I think that a mother's biggest fear is that her child will be forgotten. So I don't want him to be forgotten, and I don't want him just to be known as the little boy who drowned in a pool. I want him to be known for what he was. So do you want to tell the stories?
Oh, well, which ones did you want to tell?
The ones where he would steal the spots.
Oh, yeah. So when you would be on the couch and you'd have your spot and you'd get up and you'd walk into the kitchen, and then he would run to your spot and he would spread his arms and legs over the spot. And he'd be like, you'd go to sit down and he'd be like, I stole your spot. And he would just, anyway, he thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have a place to sit down. So
yeah.
He did that all the time. That was pretty fun.
All the time. Every time somebody would walk up to get a drink or go to the bathroom, he would just run to their spot really fast. It was super cute. The other story that we were talking about on our way here is that, I've had a lot of kids. Most of the time, you put your kid to bed at night and you're like, oh, phew.
Thank goodness.
They're asleep, I
can finally catch my breath.
Yes, and nobody make any noise because heaven forbid you wake them up. Well, Crew was a little different. Right?
Yeah, so we'd be sitting there, it'd be like 10 o'clock, and Jen and I would be looking at each other.
Or 11 or 12.
Yeah, and we'd be like, why don't we go wake up Crew?
We miss Crew. Yeah.
That's so
and
sweet.
So we would just go in his room and wake him up and just play with him.
We'd bring him out and play with him, and
For about an hour.
he would wake up and he would just smile.
Yeah.
He was so excited. He wouldn't wake up ornery. He wouldn't. He was just so happy.
And then after an hour or so, we'd be like, all right, time to go to bed.
Yep.
And then he would go back to bed.
We'd
So,
give him his bottle and
we
he'd
never
just go
woke
right
our
back
other
to
kids
sleep.
up
No.
in the middle of the night.
Not recommended
just to have
parenting
fun.
strategy, right?
Yeah, but
No, that shows Crew is a very
anyway.
special person.
Yeah, he was
because
very special.
If I woke any of my children up at that hour, for one, they would really be grumpy, and for two, they definitely would never go back to
Yeah,
bed.
they wouldn't
so
go back to
I wouldn't
bed,
even
right.
risk
Yeah.
it, no matter how cute
Yeah,
they
you
were.
wouldn't risk it.
Right?
So hats off to you and Crew.
Well, and I don't know how we did that the first time, but we just.
I don't know. We did that a lot.
But then when we realized he would just go back to
It was
sleep,
just
we
kind of
did it
like a
all the
fun thing
time.
to do.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So
It's a game
anyway,
to play.
Crew was amazing. He is amazing. So, but I guess I'll start with the story. So it was 4 years ago, Memorial Day weekend, and we decided to go on a family vacation down to St. George. It was kind of our last hurrah before my oldest son was leaving on his mission. And so we packed up the minivan and we drove down to St. George with the whole family, all 6 kids, and we had a great weekend. We played together, we swam together, we just had a great time. We were with family members, and it was amazing.
Just a big family party.
Just a big family party, and we were having a great time. And it was Sunday, and we had just gotten home from church, and my oldest daughter and I decided we were making sushi that night, and so we had forgotten a couple things. So we ran to the store to pick up a couple of things that we had forgotten.
And so I looked around the kitchen and realized I couldn't see Crew. And in a panic, I ran to the backyard and found Crew motionless in the swimming pool. So I jumped in, fully clothed, of course, and grabbed him and pulled him out and started giving him CPR. And we called 911, and we ended up over at the hospital. And
Well, I got a phone call from my daughter.
Right.
She's now 16. She was 12. As we were loading our groceries, saying, "Mom, we found Crew in the pool and he's not breathing." And I said, "Well, have you called 911? Have you?" And she said, "Yes, and the paramedics are here." And so I just drove like crazy. I don't even remember that drive, and came in and saw the paramedics working on my son on the kitchen floor. And our whole family was there. All of my kids were standing around as we watched them working on him. And they said to me, "Well, the doctor at the ER has told us that we can go ahead and call it right here, or we can take him to the hospital and keep working on him." And I'm like, "Well, he's not alive yet, so you're going to keep working on him." So they actually, after they calmed me down a little bit, they let me go on the helicopter, and he was life flighted to the hospital, where they continued to work on him.
But then after, everybody leaves and they pull the tubes out and everything, then you're just left there holding your baby. So Jen just probably, for about half an hour or an hour, we just held Crew, and you sang some songs to him. And so
Each of our kids came in and said goodbye to him. And I just did not want to let him go.
yeah, so, they take him away, and then at this point,
And I wanted to go with him. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
let me go wherever. I mean, they're transferring him back to Heber. Let me go with him.
and then we have to get in the car and drive home.
We drove home that night.
Without your son.
Without-
Yeah,
son.
so it just felt wrong. And then there was a great funeral and flowers and well wishes and friends, and a very small casket, and
How old was Crew?
he was 3.
He was 3. He turned 3 in April, and it was May.
So it's just barely a little cute, darling 3-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
the
how old
perfect
were the
little-
other kids? You mentioned the 13-year-old and then a couple older. Tell me the ages at the time when you lost Crew.
So at the time, my son was 19, and my And then we had a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old.
I remember that weekend. We've been friends for a long time. I got on Facebook on a Saturday night, and I saw your pictures of Crew. He was so happy in that pool. He was having a fun time. The family looked happy. Everyone was just having so much fun. And I remember thinking, it's so cool. This little boy has gotten this amazing family to come into, and look how happy and joyous he is. And what a blessing. Yeah. And then, and the phone calls all start the next evening, and it's like, well, how could that happen? How can that happen? And how can that be? I mean, even for me, someone who wasn't super close to the family, but close enough, and I was watching, I remember you guys having him and adopting him and the whole process, and then watching him grow into this family, and it was such a beautiful thing to happen, and then it was just over.
Yeah. That's so fast, and that's what you're left with, and that was, I think, what really was like whiplash for Jen, was this person's with you 24/7 from morning till night all the time, and it just requires all your time.
I mean, he was my little buddy.
And then it's just like cut off, just that fast, instantly. So that was just very disorienting for everyone. Like, what do we do now? So, after the funeral and the flowers and all that stuff kind of goes away, you're left with, okay, well, now we have to, what do we do now?
And then our oldest son left on his mission, so...
Right, 3 weeks later.
We went from 6 to 4 kids in less than a month. And then the days, and that's like when these things happen to other people, I'm always like, right now you've got all these people around you, but in 3 months from now is when the real work, I feel like, it happens later. So, I mean, as those weeks stretched on, and I don't know if you want to talk first, Jen, or you want me to, but
why don't let's take a break for a minute, and we'll be right back.
And we're back with Aaron and Jen Gabrielson. When we left, we were talking about that loss and, going from having this beautiful child in your life, and within 4 weeks, not only is your son gone, you've got another son that you've sent on to a mission for your church, and what that's like. Aaron, you mentioned that it's like, 3 months the work begins. Being a widow myself and understanding my grief process, although I'm fairly new into it myself, I would definitely say that first year was incredibly hard. And I didn't even feel the fog, they call it, the fog of grief, lift until it was about 9 months. So, but there is that time, and for me it was like 4 months when I'm like, okay, I have to quit wallowing, and I have to figure out how to go on.
A way forward.
And so it's different for all of us, but talk to us about your way forward and what that looked like for you guys.
So for me, this happened at the end of May, and so my kids were out of school like the next week. So I had all my kids home for the entire summer. And it wasn't just my grief, but then I was so concerned about my children because of the trauma they had been through. I mean, watching their little brother die on a kitchen floor, yeah. I'm an adult, and I was having a hard time dealing with it. I didn't even know how to help my kids, so we spent a lot of time going to therapy and talking and doing all of those things. And, we tried. It was a huge blessing. Aaron's cousin was living with us that summer, and so he kind of took over as a mom role and would take the kids and go do fun things. And so, and also, like Aaron said, the first 2 months, there's so many people around you. There's so many people that are there to lift you and to help carry that burden. And I think that for me, it was once the kids went back to school that I was then left with an empty home. And I was so busy raising a 3-year-old, and like Aaron said, he was my little buddy, man. He would go everywhere with me. And I didn't have that. And from about a week after Crew died, I started itching. I have no idea why, but I just started itching, and I scratched myself to the point where I'd have just
you couldn't breathe either.
Well, I know it started with the itching where, I'd have these bruises up and down all over my body and scrapes and stuff. And then it got progressively worse where my airway would close up. And Aaron had to pretty much carry me into the ER a couple of times to get epinephrine shots. And there was no reason for it, so they sent me to a psychologist and wanted to put me on tons of medication. I'm like, no, there's not. Anyway, we still don't know what causes that, but physically, my body was just breaking down.
Our family doctor came in. He didn't even really recognize you.
No. So, and then not only that, but as a mom, my responsibility is to take care of my children, right? And so my son's gone, and then I'm left with all my other children who are just suffering, and I'm suffering too. I didn't even know how to help them. And there was a lot of guilt there because I couldn't fix them, and that's what I wanted. I'm like, I can deal with my own grief, but my kids, I don't know how to help them. I don't know how to make it better for them. I want to take this away from them because they're just too young to have to deal with something so hard. So that was extremely hard. I went to counseling. That didn't really help for me. I'm so grateful. I have great friends. My best friend Mandy is just amazing, and she was there for me and just let me cry on her shoulder. We also had, they call themselves the angel moms in Hebrew, who have lost children, who actually came like right away, and I didn't even know them. And
told us there's a way through.
Yeah. But
I'm like, where's all the angel dads? There's all these moms.
Yeah.
I'm like, what about me?
Yeah.
So I asked him a lot of questions, and anyway. So.
But physically, I was just
yeah, you had a rough
falling
time.
apart.
So for me, it because I'm the one that found Crew and pulled him out and gave him CPR, and I found that within the next weeks or whatever, I would wake up and I would watch that movie. I can see it as crystal clear today as I could then. And that video of finding Crew would play in my mind from start to finish, like from morning till night, maybe 40, 50, 60 times a day, pretty much all day long. And I couldn't, and one day of that, and then 2 days, and then a week, and then a month, and it wasn't changing. And so after 6 months of this,
you're being re-traumatized basically every day.
It's like,
multiple
and it
times
felt
a
like
day.
getting kicked in the stomach over and over with that, having to relive that movie. And I couldn't stop that movie from playing. So I started skipping work, and, what I realize now was pretty severe depression. And, of course, Jen and I's marriage was extremely strained.
And we had heard that, like, at the very beginning, that
this could be
the percentage of divorces after you lose a child is so
really
high.
Yeah,
and right there at the beginning, like, do you remember we didn't
Yeah,
even
we're
want to
like-
leave each other's side? It's like we just were clinging to each other for those first few weeks. And so when people said that, I'm like, what do you mean? How on earth, why would we ever get divorced? We are the only thing that each other has right now. And it did not make sense to me at the beginning, but as time went on, I understood.
I mean, you get to the point where I felt like I can't take care of myself. How can I take care of her? And how can I take care of my kids? And how can I, take care of my job? And I mean, you get to a point where...
Which is a big thing for a man. I mean,
you
I know
feel
for
helpless.
John, right. I know for John, it was always about providing for me. When he found out that he had cancer, he had no fear about dying. He was like, I need to make sure you're provided for. So here you are, you've got these children that you're responsible for. You still have a wife. I can't imagine the burden and the, I'm not a man, so I don't really get that like drive to provide, right? And I've always really been well taken care of by John. So I don't really understand it other than to say I've lived with a man and it was such everything about who he is. So I hear you say that and you just mentioned before, where's the angel dads? Like we don't
where are the other dads?
We don't have a great network for dads that are grieving.
So I did start reaching out to some of my friends, which isn't natural for me. And I thankfully had some really good friends that I could rely on and could talk to and open up to and tell them how much I was suffering. And they would listen, and that helped a lot. I had a good bishop that helped me.
Well, and I don't know, but when Aaron got at his worst, and I was just like, we're going to be another one of those statistics. We're not going to, because both of us, we were just...
It got pretty bad.
It got pretty bad. And so I did go to our bishop, and I just said, please, I don't know what to do. We're going to end up a statistic, and I don't want that to happen, but I don't know how to change it. Because we're both suffering so much, but we cannot come together because everybody suffers so differently. Everybody mourns so differently.
Yeah.
About the fall of 2017, so this would be maybe 18 months after. I mean, you talked about 9 months. For me, at 18 months, that PTSD I was really struggling with it. And I went to some counseling, and it didn't help. And I had to deal with this every day. I mean, for over, years of this, having to watch this video over and over. So the despair got bad enough that I did start to fantasize about ways to end my life, and I just started thinking of ways to You wanted
the movie to stop,
It
right?
was just, when things get that bad, you start looking for a way out. So I just thought, you know what, this is intolerable, so there's got to... I just didn't want to be here anymore. So, but I also knew what that would do to my family, so it kind of wasn't an option, but it was probably just a fantasy at that point. So,
but it definitely is something that crossed your mind.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
So when it got at its worst, and that's when I'm like, you know what, I need some more help. So I did start looking into PTSD and finding someone that could help me with that. And I found a specialist on EMDR, which is a technique used to help with PTSD. And I found a therapist who was amazing. And when you have PTSD, you can't put those memories into long-term memory. They are too traumatic, and they don't get stored. When you sleep at night, those memories get put away. So it's kind of like papers on your desk. Every day you have to look at those papers everywhere. I just needed to get them filed away. Not that I wanted to forget, but I couldn't have that so present every day. You can't function, you can't work, you can't do anything. So I couldn't believe how that was really the turning point for me, is when I finally got the help I needed for PTSD. And I woke up and I didn't have to deal with it all day long. I can still go and remember that if I want to, which it's not a fun memory, but I can if I want to. But I'm not forced to view it all day long and all, day and night. So that was kind of a turning point for me.
So what did that turning point of yours do? What impact did that have on the marriage? And did your turning point at all influence your turning point? Did you have a kind of a defining moment or period where you felt like you were maybe reaching up rather than down? Or tell us how, like you said, everybody grieves so differently. We process it so differently. And it sounds like he's found something that's maybe starting to work and at least help him clear his thoughts a little. Did his getting some help you?
Well,
or what's that connection, that interplay there?
I think we both took our own paths on finding, things that helped us.
And we really weren't there for each other.
No.
I mean,
No.
because how can I lean on her when she's a mess and I'm a mess? Like,
yeah.
I didn't want to lean on her anymore.
Yeah,
so
and I didn't want to.
You're each having to learn to put your oxygen mask on, like they always say in the plane. Put your own oxygen mask on first. So you're finding a way that's helpful to get yours, Jen.
Well, it sounds like you found your oxygen mask, but have you found it yet?
So, this is what the therapist would always say to me. We need to get you to a point where, you're not. I don't know. I was afraid. I felt like they wanted me to get over it. Yeah. And I'm never going to do that. So for me, I did with the physical issues. We were able to. He found help through this therapist. I went to her. She didn't help me. I mean, not that.
It's just not a one-size-fits-all approach.
And, I was the biggest skeptic about energy work. Mm-hmm. However, a good friend of mine who lost a little girl in the same way said, Jen, you've got to go see this lady. And I actually went and had energy work done. And that helped me more than anything else. And so that I was able to kind of get my health, and I still have health issues. I've
more manageable, but yeah,
they're more manageable, but they're not gone.
Yeah,
but
it's all a process. It's like, I think that's one of the triggers for me is that I can see in some people's faces when they're talking to me, like, oh, well, aren't you over this yet? Like, he died 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, but he was my entire future.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's like, I feel like because we don't discuss things in America, because we don't talk about grief, because we don't talk about grief with, we don't know if what our parents' wishes are for their dying wish. Yeah. We don't know. We don't talk to our children. Spouses don't talk to each other. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things I'm passionate, and I'm hoping that we get to encourage people or inspire people to get on this. Like, today's the day. Don't put this off. We're not promised tomorrow. We've got to start having these conversations, and part of that is that, when we're working on our grief and our healing, it's a lifelong process.
Oh, well, 100%. And especially with when you lose a child, it's not just the grieving that you suffer when they're gone, but all of their future plans that they would have made. Like, every birthday, when all the kids his age started kindergarten and the moms were all on Facebook saying how hard it was that their child went to kindergarten. I just said, I wish my child was going to kindergarten.
Right.
And, I walk through the store and I'll see something. He loved Cars, the movie Cars, and I'll see something like a little shirt or something, and it'll just be like a dagger to my heart because I'm like, oh, I wish he was here so I could buy him that, or, just have him experience something. I'll see a train and I'll stop and watch it go by because he loved trains. And so it's not just that time, it's all of forever.
Right.
It's not right for a child to die before their parent. So,
right.
I do. I mourn all the things that he's missing out on. And that I'm missing out on watching him do.
All the things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities. In different kinds of grief entirely.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you lost your dad, for you, getting married was one of those things, right, Jen?
Yeah, I think when you're a child and you lose someone, it's kind of like you've said, as the mother, you're grieving what you didn't get to see that child do. As a child, I grieved what my father didn't get to see me do. He wasn't there when I learned to drive or started dating or graduated high school or all of the things. And I when you're talking about getting over it or moving on or what, I remember shortly after my husband died, someone asked if a certain event had given me closure. And I just looked at him like, you think I'm looking for closure? Like I'm closing the door? I'm not looking for closure. And you said something that was really powerful, I think, a few minutes ago when you talked about you just want to fix it. You want to fix it for your kids. You want to fix it, as spouses. We want to fix it as friends. Perfect strangers hearing this, you're like, oh my gosh, Jen, I just want to fix this for you. Nobody, nothing can fix this. So have you found anything in those moments that helps you face it? Or help your kids face it, help each other face those birthdays, face those kindergarten first days. What has helped you face it when we know I just can't fix this?
So one thing that we started, it was pretty quick after, it was our bishop who actually kind of encouraged me to do this, was to start some kind of charity or something in Crew's name, because he brought so much joy. It's like we want to bring joy to other people, right? And so I started a charity called Crew Service Train, and we, along with our children, we were trying to find different services that we could do. And for me, I'm very passionate about, children. I love kids. I just love them. And so I wanted to do something to help kids. And I've traveled quite a bit. Aaron and I have traveled quite a bit. I've seen poor. And I know that, what I see here is not the same as poor in other countries. And so it just kind of all worked out that I got in touch with an organization in Haiti. And Crew, everybody asked me, oh, is Crew from Haiti? Crew's not
They're like,
from
what
Haiti.
country do you adopt him from?
Yeah.
I'm like, West Jordan?
Yeah, he was born
He
here.
was born in Utah.
Utah people.
Yeah, but
He's a Utah native.
yeah.
Yes.
I was just kind of, I was able to get with this organization, and I got busy. And I've taken 4 or 5 groups of people over to Haiti to do humanitarian trips.
Wow.
The first one that I took, my husband and all my kids went with me. And it was an amazing experience. It was healing. Like you said, you never get healed. But it was it was a healing experience to go, and we did it at an orphanage, and we had a great time. And we were able to bring like 21 huge boxes of donations over there with clothes, diapers, formula, medication, you name it.
Painted a mural at the
orphanage.
At the orphanage, yeah.
And since then, I've actually I'm on a committee for an organization. It's a Child's Hope Foundation for an orphanage over in Haiti.
It's a new orphanage, right, that they're trying to build?
It's a new orphanage that we're just like from the ground up. And so it's been kind of hard because we haven't been able to go over there lately. But I feel like that really fills my cup. That really, really helps. Another thing that I'm a doer. I kind of like to be going all the time and being involved in activities or remodeling my house or whatever. And for the first time in my life, I found that I didn't want to get out of bed. I would get my kids off to school, and then I'd go back to bed because how could I even face the day? And, with my friend's help, I just realized I have to. I don't have another choice. I can't just sit here in bed all day, every day. So I started scheduling appointments for myself in the morning.
That is brilliant.
That is a brilliant idea.
Brilliant.
I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me that?
I know.
That's a simple, brilliant thing.
I'm
I have to
making
be
a note.
out of bed and out of the house by this time.
So I have a little business I have at my house, and so I would schedule clients at first it was like 11, and then I'm like, okay, I'm
Because
going
that
to do
felt
10.
really early.
Yeah, I'm going to do 10, and then 9. And I'm telling you what, my alarm would go off, and I did not want to get out of bed. And I'm not going to lie, there were times that I texted and said, I'm not feeling good today. We're going to have to reschedule. But I feel like that's what I had to do. I had to schedule
You
something.
set that little milestone for yourself.
Yes.
That is such a brilliant.
It is a
I'm going
brilliant.
to call that a tactic. Like
Yeah.
That's a tactic of, I've got to be somewhere today, or
Yes.
someone's coming here today.
Yeah, and I didn't
And
want
then give yourself grace on the days it's just not going to work. Because
Yeah.
some days it's just not
Right.
going to work.
It's
And
not.
you know what?
But for the
It's-
most part, it's giving yourself something to say, well, I guess today I'm getting up. So
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, and it's been 4 years. It's been over 4 years. And I still have days when I get in my covers and I just don't get out of bed. And it's okay.
Yeah. it
Because,
is
you know,
okay.
most days I do get up.
Right.
And I do,
Right.
take care of things. But
You know,
I think-
you.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. This is our problem. We don't know who gets
We
to
just
talk.
like to talk. Well, you're just inspiring so many ideas in my mind. I
Well,
always...
and I mean, it just triggers so much of your own story, right? So you said, you just wanted it to go away, or I felt the pressure of my community or my family to like get past this. And I actually started seeing a therapist about a year before John died, and was seeing a therapist after. And one day she said to me, Michelle, it seems like you keep wanting to package this event. You're never going to not grieve your husband.
yeah.
And when she said that, I thought, how dare you? You have just taken every bit of hope that I can even breathe my next breath. I was so upset. And then she started explaining it to me. And she said, it is going to get to a point when you start allowing yourself to feel the pain and feel that sadness, and you grieve that grief. You cry those tears. It will pass. And the next time will be a little bit further away, and it won't last quite as long. And eventually, you will start to be able to sense it or feel it coming.
Yeah.
Not always. She said 15 years from now, you might be taken by surprise all over again.
Yeah.
Something could trigger it.
Well, and for me, like people would be like, oh, you're doing so much better. And I would get mad. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Do you have any idea how
And then-
hard I'm trying to just
or-
stay on my feet
Yeah,
today?
I know. Or I would,
Let me tell you this one. I know what you heard, right? You're so strong.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're
I'm
so
like,
strong.
No, I am not.
Yeah.
If you could see it, or, I could never do this. There's no way.
Yeah.
I would die. I'm like, well, what choice was I given? Yeah. Guess
Right.
what? If I had a choice, I would not have picked this either.
Yeah.
But and then when I would find myself like laughing or something, I would immediately feel guilty. Because how on earth could I even have any kind of happiness when crew wasn't there? And so it was a real struggle between trying to move on with my life and be engaged with my kids and my husband and just with life, and also, just knowing that there's no way I'm ever going to be okay with this. I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to say I'm so grateful my son died. Those will never be words that come out of my mouth. And I have
And that's hard, right? I mean,
Yeah.
especially in our community that we live in, people want to find like reasons that things happen to us
Yeah.
as if they're given to us for this grand purpose. But really, sometimes life is cruel, and it just happens because
yeah.
we're actually just mortals living in existence.
People want to create meaning, and sometimes just bad things happen. And
Yeah.
so, I am not one of those people that's like, oh, this happened for an important reason. Or we all take our turn in this grist mill sometimes, but and maybe there is some grand purpose in the suffering that you feel, but I mean, I don't.
But it's hard to say my child died
because
for
of
a
this.
purpose,
Right,
or because we needed to learn something. I don't actually think that that's what happens.
I don't think it works that way.
I do think that part of resiliency is the moment that you choose to find meaning after a tragedy, that you look for the positive things that you can apply from
and
the
it sounds
experience.
to me like you're setting this wonderful example of creating positive things. The
Yeah.
things you're doing with the orphanage. You're not just looking around waiting for an opportunity for this to kind of bring purpose to your life. You're dragging yourself out of bed and saying, I'm going to go help someone else because if my cute little crew were here, he'd be making everybody smile. So you know what? I'm going to go find somebody to help smile.
Exactly what we try to do.
And to see you do that, the expression I think of is grit with grace, and everybody thinks that's like this beautiful, strong woman, and I think no, it's grit is that strength you pull from you don't even know where within yourself, and it's the grace of God that lets you keep going, and then you have to have grace with yourself. There are the days when you're just going to stay in bed, or the other day I was listening to some music. It totally triggered 1,000 memories. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. And that was okay. Versus before, right after my husband died, those waves of grief scared me to death. It wasn't just that I was sad and scared to death. Now I can just be sad. And you know what? It's okay to be sad. Okay. You know why I'm so sad? Because I really, really love him. Yeah. And I really, really miss him.
Well, and
so I'm sad about that.
I love the quote that grief is the price we pay for love.
Loving so much. And loving so much.
If we did not love Crew so dang much, if we were not just crazy about that little boy, it wouldn't be so hard.
Right.
But I've thought about it, and I'm like, would I go back and taken that away to be able to avoid the grief that I'm going through now? And no way would I. No way. He's worth every moment.
Yeah.
Every tear. He's worth every amount of grief that I'm suffering right now.
And all the cool stuff we've learned,
yes.
We would also give that up.
Yes.
And
I know.
To go back and
People
have it.
Are like, well,
People are like, oh, you've learned so much. I'm like, I would trade it all.
Yeah.
I would unlearn everything.
If you could do it again, because of all the things that you've learned, wouldn't you do it again? I'm like, no. No, I would not.
That's a bad trade.
Yeah, that's a bad
trade.
That was
back.
the worst trade, right? Yeah. It was the worst. It is true that we find those meaning and purpose in our loss, but that's for us to determine. It's not because, like for me, when people would say, oh, God had a plan or God, it was his time, or, there's all these like trite little sayings. And I do want to say this for listeners who may be listening out there. Say something. It's better than nothing. And those that us are grieving, while it does put a dagger to the heart at times, it is better than nothing, right?
Well, and I think people don't know what to say. So
right.
if they say something completely dumb, I look at it as my job to translate what they really meant was, I'm sorry.
Well, right.
All they really meant was, I'm sorry.
And
I'm sorry.
Nobody's malicious. Nobody's trying to hurt you. They just don't know. And you know what? I wonder how many times I said stupid things to people.
Oh, for sure.
I know I did. But do you remember we actually wrote in a book, we wrote down
all the
things that people said that we thought were unhelpful.
Yeah.
And there was a very short list.
Publish that book.
Yeah.
Well, I've got an email with them all, but there's a very short list of things that actually were helpful.
Can you tell us a couple of those as we kind of wind down this great conversation?
I was going to say first, I did, for a long time, I wanted to find meaning. I wanted to know, was this just, was this God's will? Was it that he needed to go? Because people would always say, oh, he's in a better place. And I'm like, I feel like we had a pretty good home for him here.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, and
it's so rude
it was his time to go.
Not helpful list.
No,
definitely the not helpful list.
Well intending.
Yeah, not helpful.
But and I struggled for a long time because I wanted to know, and it took me a long time. But I am at a point now where I don't know, but I have faith that one day I will. That I one day will know.
And that right there is the epitome of resilience.
Right.
I think being able to say, I don't know, I'm not rejoicing, I don't think this was like the best idea ever, and I'm still going to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
I'm still going to put one foot in front of the other. So amazing, so inspiring, just so helpful to think of the power of finding what works for you. I mean, so many things I've learned from this brief conversation, how even in a couple where you've been married over 20 years, you probably could finish each other's sentences, you don't grieve the same way. No. And that's an important aha moment to say, you've got to find what works for you. You get your oxygen mask on. Don't turn on each other. Try to turn toward each other and maybe give each other that space. But then also being able to be okay with really, really missing your lost loved person. Yeah. I don't think we let ourselves do that enough as a society, because that looks weak, or we think that that's maybe right after they die, that's fine, we expect it. But after all this time, haven't you moved on? No, guess what? I still miss him. Yeah. But I'm not going to let it cripple me.
Every single day.
But I'm not going to let it cripple me all day, every day. Yes, there's going to be times when it cripples me. And most of the time, I'm going to carry on that beautiful smile of this darling little boy. And you're going to do everything you can to help other people smile in his memory and his honor. And some days you're just going to have to be okay with not being okay. And I think that's powerful resilience right there.
It is. I feel incredible. And I was telling Michelle this, I feel like I'm living in I have two lives. I'm living two lives. And this is what has helped me with those feelings of guilt because I'm here and he's not, is that I have this world where it is horrible. Like having Crew gone, losing him, losing a child, and having to bury your child is horrible. And this little world will never be okay. It won't. I will never be okay with this. Yes, I'm going to learn things from this. I'm going to try to be a better person. I'm going to try to be more empathetic. I'm going to try to serve more. But this life will always be horrible. And then I have my other life where I still need to find joy. I do find joy. Let me tell you, having a grandbaby is the best thing ever. I mean, we should have started with being grandparents.
My husband and I used to say that all the time.
Yeah. But and it's okay. And it's okay. And that's where I'm like, you had a quote about how grief clears out. Do you want to?
There's just a really famous quote by this guy named Gibran, and he says that the suffering you experience carves a space in you to create room for more joy.
Wow.
And so you experience this suffering, and it's painful, and it scrapes you out, but it makes room. And I think it's true. You can experience more joy.
And you can put joy into that space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and also you just realize how frivolous most things that
superficial
the stuff we really worry about all day,
the things that we worry about and that we fill our time with is just so unimportant. And so now, I mean, and I have not mastered this. However, I do think about it more. With my kids, I think about it more. I look at, with raising my first few kids, how much I worried about all those arbitrary milestones that, they need a rollover. This time they need. Well, let me just tell you, I got to tell this story about Crew. So when it was right before he turned 3, and I was feeling the pressure that I needed to get him potty trained, because most kids are potty trained by 3, right? So we worked on it, and he did great. And he loved his bottle. He loved it. And we weren't giving him soda in it. I mean, we got him, raw milk, farm fresh, raw milk. He drank that all the time. And Aaron's like, we can't have him have bottles because he won't get potty trained. So anyway, 2 weeks, he did great, was doing everything on the toilet. And after 2 weeks, I said, Crew, let's go to the bathroom. And he said, no, I already did that.
Oh,
I'm like, but
it was a
Crew,
cool adventure. But
I'm good.
I did that.
Thanks,
I did it. We're done. And I said, but Crew, you're a big boy. Let's put on your diaper. He's like, no, I'm a baby. I'm like, you don't want to wear big boy underpants? He's like, no, I'm a baby. I'm like,
So Jen and I are
okay.
like, fine,
So
whatever.
I put on his pull-ups.
You know what? He's going to
and
learn
then-
someday.
And then he wasn't sleeping as well because he left his bottle. So at 3 years old, I went to Walmart and I bought my 3-year-old all new bottles because we had thrown them all away so that it wouldn't be a problem. Oh yeah, I bought him
You're
all
like,
new
never
bottles.
mind, stocking
And
up.
When I got home, you should have seen the smile on his face. And I am so grateful that those last few weeks that I had with him were not trying to fight him to go to the bathroom on the toilet.
Yeah. What a blessing.
What a
I mean, that's one
blessing.
of those little tender mercies,
It
right?
is definitely a tender mercy.
Well, the
Because,
perspective it gives
yeah.
you, like you said, the stuff that we get worried about all day, every day probably doesn't really matter. in
Yeah,
the long
yeah.
run.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
You know, I wonder about
so
that for like a
beautiful.
future husband, having a husband die of cancer. You know, we stopped having arguments about
Yeah.
stupid, petty things that just don't matter.
Yeah.
The little things really don't matter.
They don't.
And everything became about things that were really important in life. And, you know, I can't imagine finding someone else because I have this perspective and I don't want to have small conversations. I don't want to have small talk. I don't even know how to really date even to even try to find that person because I don't want to spend any time in life that's not creating value or purpose, you know?
Well, and there is one more thing I didn't mention, but we also, you know, because I felt like, you know, what can I be doing that's as important as raising a 3-year-old? We decided to foster care, to do foster care, and
Lots of classes
yes, lots and lots of classes.
they make you take.
Yeah, but there's a big need. There's
is.
a big need
So we
for
had
homes.
12 foster kids.
And we ended up having 12 foster kids
Oh.
in a not at one time.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Not at
No,
one
no,
time.
over time.
But in a span of 18 months.
See, I'm
And-
picturing that
amazing.
carved out space and what joy you filled into that space. Not just your own joy, but joy for those children, joy for your adopted child.
And
joy
there
for
were
the
and
rest
that's
of your
beautiful,
children.
beautiful kids that came to our house. It
Yeah.
was great.
that taught us a lot.
Well, and I can say from knowing both of you so well, and I mean, you guys have some of the kindest hearts of anyone I've ever known, and I can only imagine the love that is felt in your home. What a gift to be able to share that with other children, and
Well,
and now you have a new child
yeah,
as
we
well,
have
right?
a new child. Yeah, and you know, it's not easy. I'm not gonna. I mean,
he's a ton of fun.
Anybody listening, don't think the foster care is like super easy. It's not, but it definitely
It's
is worth
worth
it.
it.
And I hope that we made an impact on some of those kids' lives.
So
But-
before we finish up, I just want to hear, how did you guys get back on the same page, and how are you doing things to help keep cementing this relationship and putting the value into your relationship so that you can be those great parents for
Well,
these families?
like you said, you have to put that oxygen mask on. If I had nothing to give to Jen,
And I
or
had
the rest
nothing
of
to
right.
give.
So until I was able to go get therapy and get myself figured out and recover, then as soon as we did that, I started going back to my job, and we started going on dates and started working on a relationship, and just
And Aaron's really good at planning trips.
I do love to plan trips.
So
But-
we go on trips
And so
together.
our relationship, I think, has never been better. So it's been great. We have a lot of fun together, and we laugh together, and we miss crew every day.
We cry together.
But we enjoy our kids.
Beautiful.
And
And our family is so, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't see other families, but we just love each other. We all, like, my kids always, before they say goodbye to each other, they say they love them, and they're just best friends, and we talk, and we cry, and it has just bonded our family. Well, Crew did. Crew was the center of our family, and it just bonded us in a way
it
that
still is the center.
And he still
He
is. I
is.
mean, I
He
can
definitely
feel
still
that in this
is.
conversation. He's bringing you together as a family. He's bringing you together with these beautiful foster children, with children in Haiti, with your community. It sounds like the people that you've touched. I know I am better for this conversation. I've got so many thoughts in my mind, so much you've taught me from sharing your story. Thank you for being so real with us and not sugarcoating things and being able to say, hey, here's where we've been, here's where we are, here's where we sometimes go back and forth. Thank you for the time you spent with us. Thank you, Michelle, for introducing all of us, and to our listeners for tuning in for this episode. And hopefully you've learned and gain some more tools, because resilience really is, it's a tool. It takes that work. It's not just, this inheritance you have. It's a choice, and it can be a lot of work, but I just keep thinking of that beautiful carved out space and the joy that can be filled into that. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here. Being vulnerable is hard, and it's fantastic to see you guys have the courage to come and share something so absolutely tragic and difficult in your lives, but to also see you coming together and really learning how to thrive in spite of some really unfortunate circumstances.
Hopefully it'll help somebody else.
Yeah,
So,
I hope
it's really
so.
not about us.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the purpose, right? This is the purpose of this podcast. Our whole purpose here in this podcast is to hopefully remind people to realize that we're all suffering with sometimes big things, and we don't know what others are dealing with. So to kind of create that space. So with that, we're going to have to say goodbye, but we want you to subscribe for free to our podcast if you like what you've heard today, and give us a rating and review. If you or someone you know has a real story about a real life that you're willing to share, send us an email at rrpodcast@ksl.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient. Remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles that others are dealing with in their lives.